Hey guys, so I'm going to do another weekly wrap up like I did last week. That seemed to interest quite a lot of people. So I've typed into the comment, the post, what I'm going to cover off today. So the whole idea of these segments is just to have a bit of a chat about what's been coming up in the media as far as nutrition and health, which might be sort of adding some confusion to some people, and catch you up with some of the good stuff that's happening in the world of nutrition as well. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of a wrap up of things that we've seen in clinic this week, and maybe a little bit of advice that might help people out there who are listening now or will listen to this afterwards. So one of the things that I noticed got a little bit of airtime in the media this week, which I kind of cringed when I opened up my newsfeed and saw it, was the cereal diet is apparently kind of being touted once again as sort of another hot diet to watch. And I really didn't look a lot into it because I didn't really like it from the outset. But essentially, it's about replacing 2 meals a day with a bowl of cereal, and for health and weight loss, I suppose. And I guess from a positive perspective, one thing that has been commented on is obviously it does increase fiber in the diet. But the thing to think about if you're looking for some kind of way to get healthy or release, unhealthy weight is what is, there's no point looking ahead for a week or 2 weeks. You've really got to look ahead to a year. So what are you going to do after at some point you're going to get sick of having cereal twice a day for 2 meals. And secondly, you're not going to get a full scope of nutrients from eating basically the same thing for 2 out of 3 meals per day. It pretty much works on a calorie deficit model. So, you pick a low calorie cereal and you lose weight that way, as opposed to really looking at what does the body need as far as nutrients to kind of really bring it back to health and maintain health. So, it's the kind of diet that people probably do for a week or two as a bit of a crash dieting sort of option. There's no research, from what I could find, there's no actual research on it. And thirdly, just to leave you with a thought on this, I have a feeling Kellogg's might have had something to do with the cereal diet. So there may be a hidden agenda there to getting people to give this a go. That's all I'm going to say about that, because I don't want this segment to be negative, really. There was some really cool stuff that I was reading this afternoon when I finished in clinic about an American researcher getting some money to look closely at polyphenols in berries, and using them for cardiovascular benefits, in particular how they may assist to reduce arterial plaque buildup, which is awesome. We know that berries have lots of really great compounds, and polyphenols are definitely one of them. And, blackberries, ironically, which they talk about in this research, or particularly blackberries, they're going to be looking at the compounds in blackberries specifically in the research. Blackberries is something that come up on people's metabolic balance plans. So that's the personalized nutrition program we do in the clinic. So definitely, from a food as medicine approach, it's great that some of these really awesome nutrients that we get from nature are being recognized for the power that they can have in the human body. And I guess it goes back to that whole philosophy that we're about real food here at the Balanced Nutritionist. And I wouldn't really put cereal in the basket of real food, to be honest. Okay, so that was a popular comment. The final thing I wanted to talk about was, I just was looking at some research before about fasting is coming up again, and a few people have asked me about fasting, not so much clients, but just people that you meet at coffee shops and whatnot. So it seems to be getting a lot of interest at the moment. I guess I just wanted to say about fasting, like, it comes in lots of different forms. So there's obviously in metabolic balance, our program kind of incorporates fasting to an extent because it promotes basically a decent gap between meals, and it's a no snacking sort of plan. It's 3 solid meals per day. Everybody will experience some, fasting to some degree overnight because they eat dinner and then, they're not going to eat breakfast for anywhere between 12 and 14 hours. Whether you're going to get any benefits from that gap really depends on what the composition of the meal was beforehand. If it was really highly calorific or very high in, glucose or fructose or sugars in general, then there's probably not going to be a great deal of benefit. But if it's a sensible meal, then what happens when we don't eat for a while metabolically, very simply, is that our blood sugar levels reduce because, they tend to peak a couple of hours after we eat and then they come down. And when our blood sugar levels come down because there's no more, food essentially to deal with, our insulin levels come down. And this is something I talk to people about in clinic a lot. It's really basic biochemistry. The process of breaking down body fat or releasing unhealthy weight cannot happen unless blood sugar and insulin levels are low. And that's why people who have type 2 diabetes or any sort of insulin resistance will be more challenged as far as their metabolism and a healthy weight is concerned, because it's harder to get their blood sugar and their insulin levels under control. So one of the biggest benefits to fasting, it's a shame that it's becoming a bit of a fad because, scientifically it does make sense. However, it comes in different forms and we're just dressing it up in different ways. At the end of the day, if you eat a sensible meal at night that's not overly heavy, like I said before, you should be getting metabolic benefits through the evening, and you should be waking up, during the night. You should fall into a state where you're burning fat, and you're getting some other benefits from fasting as well, and then you wake up and have your morning meal. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about this particular, or the new dressed up version of fasting is called alternate day fasting. And in the research, they had people eating for a 12-hour window and then fasting for 36 hours. So, obviously there's going to be some metabolic benefits there because they're basically putting them into ketosis, essentially, I would imagine. The thing I didn't like about that research piece was that during the 12 hours, from what I could see, they basically were allowed to eat anything. And I think, we still need to promote the consumption of healthy food most of the time, because no matter which way you dress it up, if you eat rubbish, at some point you're going to end up nutrient deficient, whether or not you're at a healthy weight range or not. So it's not about, we always say, let's get off the whole massive conversation about weight and look at it from a health perspective. And unless you're eating healthy food most of the time, you're eventually going to run into some issues. I know that they said, even though people weren't necessarily eating the best food, they were still getting cardiovascular benefits and all this kind of stuff. Okay, yeah, sure. But anytime there is some weight release, there will be cardiovascular benefits, because when you release weight, I've written an article about this, but we forget that fat cells kind of have a little bit of a mind of their own, and they produce inflammatory mediums and they produce hormones all of their own. So when you release some unwanted body fat or unnecessary body fat, you're going to get cardiovascular benefits. So I guess what I wanted to say about that particular style of eating, like 36 hours fasting, 12 hours eating, is that I really don't think we should be encouraging people to eat whatever they want for 12 hours and then fast, because it's not going to be healthy long term. And also, at the end of the day, there's always going to be new styles of eating and new diets and all of that sort of stuff come out. And what really matters is finding, finding foods and a lifestyle that work for you and make you feel good and enable you to have good levels of energy and good quality of life, and you can move and all that sort of stuff, and you can stick with it long term. And that's probably going to, you know, you're going to need a little bit of balance in there as well. I don't know. Well, look, I'm going to put it out there. I don't want to fast for 36 hours and eat for 12. It's just not going to work for the way I like to do life. But yeah, that was sort of the latest thing. So I guess the take home point is, yes, there should, in life, if you think about it, there should always be periods of time that we just do fast. And we don't have to dress it up into a particular program. You know, it should happen naturally. And if you look back in time, it used to happen very naturally when we didn't have food thrown at us from every angle all of the time. So just be mindful of the way they're dressing up intermittent fasting, because yes, there are benefits, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. And like I always say to people, you know, it comes back to listening to your appetite a lot of the times and being okay with sometimes feeling a bit hungry, eating when you're hungry, you know, stopping when you're full, and so on and so on. And that's going to look different every day. So I hope I didn't confuse anyone at that point. So I wanted to also just recap. We've had a really positive week in clinic this week. I put a post up earlier in the week saying that one of the things that I've been seeing coming through from new clients when they're booking in is, you know, comments like, I really want to learn how to be healthy and I really want to change my lifestyle long term. And these are really cool things. And there was something that I picked up in the news this week that apparently more people are being motivated to realize that, you know, we need to look long term, not just what's going to happen in 2 weeks time when I go to that ball and I want to fit into a particular dress, because that's not what it's about. So a lot of the times in clinic, we're talking to people about, look, forget about what's going to happen in 2 weeks. Forget about that. Think about how different your life could be in a year if you adopt some of these healthier habits, not just from a health perspective, but from a quality of life, from what you're able to do, the way you can perform in your job or your business or anything like that. So that's really, really positive that there's more of that stuff coming through. And yeah, another thing that I feel like you go through cycles, and at the moment, in the last few months, the clinic and our work in the clinic, so mine and Nicole's, I feel as though it's changing a lot, because let's be really honest, and I think I did this, we did a podcast on this, which we haven't released yet. You know, with the way Google is and the internet is these days, there's really not a lot of information that you can get from seeing a nutritionist that is new. You know, like everything is out there, every diet, every health thing, every particular supplement, it's all there for anybody to look at. So our job really is to help people to put, to take what is the most applicable and most likely to work for them, and then work with them along the lines of helping them to build that into a lifestyle, I suppose, and keep them accountable to that and help them to develop, better habits around that. So that's something we've been sort of focusing on a lot. And I think the space of Nicole said a couple of times, how much the whole psychology of habits and being healthy and everything, it's a whole nother minefield, and we're just starting to kind of throw ourselves into that sort of thing to add as much value as we can to the work that we do with our clients. So that's a space I want to kind of dig my brain into a little bit more when we have a few spare moments, and definitely that's probably where we're getting the most wins with our clients. And I think that was pretty much all I wanted to say this week. We've had some great wins. I had a lady this week say, you know, she was so happy because she said, oh, I think I can do this without weight loss surgery. And then, you know, we've had lots of other wins with people reversing some pretty major chronic health conditions. So lots of positive stuff happening at the Balanced Nutritionist. And thank you for joining us. It was great to have this session. I can see there's been a few people on, which is awesome. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll try to do these videos on a Friday at 4 p.m. And if you've got anything that you want me to address in these videos, please just let me know. I'll start posting earlier in the week and say that I'm going to do a weekly wrap up at the end of the week. Just leave a question or a comment or anything like that if you want a particular question answered, because and then I can look into it and address it in these Friday things. All right, thanks so much for joining me, guys, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.